I think it's a really cool space. I mean, I can imagine it's very transformative. Like they can basically take a clean palette and turn it into whatever the clients want. My name's Hannah Marie, and I am the owner of KW Headshots and also Hannah Marie Photographer, and my studio is based in Uptown Waterloo. Very simply put, it's to tell stories, so through imagery. So as a headshot photographer, it's my job to get to know you personally and communicate whatever it is that you want to communicate, whether you're a high-level CEO or perhaps a dentist, whatever it is. Each headshot tells its own little story. On the family side, it's to tell the stories of families, to capture kids in their element, their personalities, to connect with them, and just tell the story of whatever age and phase the family is in. Photography is important because, number one, it gives kids value and it helps them understand their worth and their place in their home. And when they see their portraits on the walls or in photo albums on coffee tables, their eyes just light up. I know one of my headshot clients recently shared a story. He said that his wife had been on him to get family portraits, and he said, well, we have our iPhones, like we have so many pictures of ourselves, why do we need professional portraits? And I said, well, you know, you probably don't print any of those and there's none on your walls, right? And he said, no, that's true. And I said, well, your kids, like, they feel so much worth and value when they see portraits of themselves printed and they can hold them. And he said, you know, that's true. Each of my kids has one picture of themselves and they like sleep with it. It comes on all of our trips. Like, these kids just treasure this one photograph of themselves because that's all they have. And when we were growing up, we always had printed portraits because that's all we had. Digital didn't exist. And we forget the value of that a child can see themselves, their place in their family, and a sense of belonging in that home. And the second level of that would be, after we've lost loved ones, all we have is video and portraits. And I think in particular parents, and often women, are the ones behind the scenes taking all the pictures, and they don't exist in portraits with their kids. And if you think of looking back on your childhood, it's the pictures of those moments with your parents that are the most special to you. I find that every photographer starts with one of three strengths. It's either they like have their lighting down and then they have to work on posing and connection, or they have posing down and then they have to learn lighting and connection, or they have connection down and they have to learn posing and lighting. And I'm the connection one. Like, I can connect with people so quickly and easily, in particular kids. And so the ability to connect with kids on that level helps them open up in front of my lens, and they kind of even forget about the camera and I can capture their personality. And after 12 years in the business, obviously I've also grown in the lighting phase and the posing realm of it all, but without connection, you can't really tell the stories as well. I don't remember if it was at my wedding or if it's just something my dad wrote and shared with me once, but he shared, like, even as a baby, like, I would always be wanting to connect with people in the room, always like making eye contact with adults and just very intently observant of what was going on. Actually, I did the Venture Creation Program through Kitchener City Hall, which no longer exists. My class was the last year, but it was incredible. I think other companies like Fiddleheads and Blue Sky Yoga were all started through it, yeah. So there's a few of us still around, and that was 12 or 13 years ago now. But I actually bought camera gear in the midst of that program, realizing like, okay, I guess I should get my own camera. And I don't necessarily recommend starting a company the way that I did, because I kind of just jumped into it and didn't have any mentors. I never studied photography, although I had studied business, like, within that course. It was an 8-month course. And I found that there were a huge learning curve, and then you tend to plateau, and then you have another big learning curve, and then you get comfortable again, and then you just push forward. But I know one of my biggest learning curves was probably a few years after I opened. My family lost 6 people in 1 year. And it kicked off the year in January with 3 deaths, and it was just like continuing for the rest of the year. So it was very traumatic, and I hadn't really established any kind of an emergency procedure or any kind of communications with my clients prior to that. I didn't really have any of my business automated in terms of canned responses or anything like that. So It was pretty rough, and to be honest, like I really wasn't pleased with how I dealt with my clients throughout that. And the editing would pile up, and my weddings would take like 4 or 6 months to get back, and I just didn't know how to communicate with my clients in the midst of trying to grieve and going through all of that, the different stages of grief. And finally, several years in, I just took a whole year off and got all caught up on all my past work. I reached out to my clients and said, you know, like I didn't give you the experience that I really wanted to, and that was not intentional. And to make up for it, I just want to basically like give back to you the amount you paid me for your wedding photography in product. And so anyone who took me up on it could order an album or wall art or anything like that of their wedding photography at no extra cost to them. Just to have that big, that big kind of, what's the word? Reconciliation, right? To repair those relationships, at least to show in good faith, like I genuinely didn't intend to run my business that way, and I was caught off guard by this traumatic year, and it just snowballed. And so during that year that I wasn't shooting, I also studied different business structures to really decide like, okay, how do I want to take my company in the next 7 to 10 years? And at that point, I decided to focus on weddings, even though my heart was in portraits. And a couple of years shooting into weddings, I decided, no, I want a studio. I left weddings, and that's how I got to where I am.